Hello dear students. Today we are going to take up chapter 14, that is agriculture in Nagaland. In this chapter, I'm going to explain to you about what are the agricultural crops that are mostly grown in Nagaland. And in the second subtopic, I'm going to explain to you about the different types of agriculture found in Nagaland. And in the third, I will explain to you about the different types of cultivation that is classified into 4 types. One is the Jhum cultivation, the wet rice terrace cultivation, the wet rice cultivation, and the elder-based cultivation. Right? So let me begin with the agricultural crops. So for that, I want you to turn to page number 93 in your textbook. In page number 93, you can see the agricultural crops, right? So I will read out for you. In Nagaland, the different kinds of crops that are found mostly grown are rice, maize, millets, job tears. There are soybeans, tomatoes, cabbage, etc. And some of these crops are the main cash crops. They are cucumber, they are turmeric, passion fruit, and they are cardamom. All right, so these are the agricultural crops. Now coming to the types of agriculture. So when I say agriculture, it's not only about planting crops, it's not only about a paddy field, but agriculture also means other types, okay? Like for example, beekeeping, right? Or candle making, basket making, all this comes under agriculture, okay? So besides agriculture, Nagaland have some small scale industries, that is they do in Wazeho we have the factory, the cement factory. In Tuli we have the paper mill. Then Tuluvi we have Tuluvi, which is in Dimapur, we have the brick factory. So this all comes under agriculture. Okay, so let me come to the types of cultivation now. So when I say types of cultivation, as I mentioned, there are 4 different classification. I'll start with the Jhum cultivation. So in Nagaland, about 80% of the people follow this Jhum cultivation. The land is mostly used for the Jhum cultivation. So here in Jhum cultivation, what they do, they have this plot of land, right? So they are slashed and burned once the cultivation is done. So these are mostly done in the villages, where they used to burn all those unwanted herbs and shrubs which are left over after the cultivation, and then they leave it fallow, they leave it barren. Okay, they keep it unused for 15 to 20 years. So why they do that is because during these 15 to 20 years, they wait for the soil to regain its fertility. Now, why this fertility is so important is because if the soil is not fertile, it's not possible to do the plantation, right? So they wait for this 15 to 20 years. Now, after this period of time, once the soil has regained its fertility, they start this cultivation again. And similarly, they use it for 1 or 2 years, and again they do the Jhum cycle, that is, they slash it, they burn it. So the other name of Jhum cycle is also known as the shifting cultivation. Why? Because once they are doing this Jhum cultivation in one plot of land, they after they use it for 1 or 2 years, they leave it for 15 to 20 years, right? So in the meantime, in this period of time, they do the same cultivation in another plot of land. So likewise, they do this shifting, right, from one land to the other. So that is shifting cultivation. Now, with the rising population, it is not easy for the farmers to leave the land unused for 15 to 20 years. So they have decreased it to 10 years. But nowadays, some of the farmers even leave this land unused for 5 years, and then after 5 years, they start this Jhum cultivation again. So because of this short span of time, it has been a threat, because it is causing deforestation, that is causing a major damage to the forest, because so many trees has to be cut down, so many plants has to be destroyed in order to grow these crops, in order to start the plantation again, right? So it is causing a threat to the environment. Another threat is the degradation of the soil, where the soil is becoming loose. So once there is heavy rainfall, it is being washed away. So we faces mudslides and landslides. And also, earlier they used to keep it for 15 to 20 years, which makes the soil very fertile. However, because of this short span of time, that is keeping the land unused for 5 years, it has loosened this fertility of it, has caused it is making the soil infertile. So earlier, if they were getting about 20-30% of the crops from there, now it has decreased. So these are some of the threats. And in Jhum cycle, in Jhum cultivation, another system that they use is the mixed cultivation. Here what they do, in one Jhum field, they not only plant 1 or 2 crops, but sometimes they also plant about 15 to 60 different types of crops in one Jhum field. So that is mixed cropping. So this is the type of cultivation that is found in Nagaland. Now the second type of cultivation is the wet rice terrace cultivation. Here in this type of cultivation, it is mostly done in the hilly areas. So they follow some certain steps in order to do that. So firstly, they look for a land which is quite fertile for the plantation of crops. Then they clean it, they do they dig the soil, they make it loose, they make it moistured by adding water to the soil. Then in the second step, what they do is they make terraces. Okay, for that I want you to look at the image in page number 93. You can see the wet terrace rice cultivation, right? So they make these terraces. Okay, so they make it with their hands. And why they do that is because once the water flows from one terraces, once it is full, it passes on to another terrace, and this helps in balancing the water level, right? And it also retains the moisture of the soil. So this wet terrace rice cultivation is mostly practiced in the hilly areas because of the slopey areas. All right, so after they are done with this terrace, they go for the third phase, that is they plant the nursery in the month of April. They plant the nursery in different field. So that time they are maintaining, they are going through all the terraces, they are going through the phase 1 and phase 2. So in the month of April, they plant this nursery in different field. So once they are done with the rice seedlings, that is mostly done in the month of April. Once it is May and July, they bring all these rice seedlings from another field and they start the transplantation. Now in this transplantation period, which takes place from May to July, the farmers work a lot. They have to put a lot of effort during the transplantation because it needs a lot of physical work, right? So they start on with the transplantation. Usually this process takes a lot of days, sometimes it goes for weeks also, okay? So once this transplantation is done, by the month of September, these seedlings, it starts growing. So they try to bind it together in order to protect them from the strong winds, and it also makes them easier when they bind them together, so that during the time of harvesting it becomes very easy to take out the seeds from there. So by the month of October, the harvesting season begins. Okay, so all the villagers, all the farmers who are involved in this cultivation, they gather up and then they start the harvesting. So that is the process for the wet rice terrace cultivation. And once they take out this harvest, they used to take it home and they store it up in their granaries. It's like a small hut where they used to store all these rice. Okay, then coming to the third one, that is the wet rice cultivation. Now this wet rice terrace cultivation, which is mostly practiced in the hilly areas, but this wet rice cultivation is practiced in the plain areas. Okay, so like for example in Dimapur or Jaluki, these areas are quite plain, right? So they mostly practice this wet rice cultivation. However, the process of this wet rice terrace cultivation and the wet rice cultivation is quite similar. They go through the same process, but the thing is that one is the hilly area and the other one is the plain area, right? So in this wet rice cultivation, since they do not have the slopes where the water can be passed on uh, from one area to the other area, so they used to make some they used to divide the land and they used to make into certain sections. Okay, so they divide the land into certain boxes, they make it into certain sections, and they wait for the monsoon season. So we all know that in plain areas rainfall is quite lesser as compared to the hilly areas, right? So they have to wait for the monsoon season. So once this monsoon season comes, the waterfalls and all these sections, whichever they have arranged it by their hands, right? Now, as the water falls on these areas, the soil gets mixed with this rainwater and makes the soil moistured and fertile. So, as the water is mixed with the soil, they used to duck it and then make it more soft so that plantation becomes easier for them. All right. So once this process is done, they start the cultivation, and with the similar process which is used in the wet rice terrace cultivation, the same thing is done where transplantation is done, where the seedling is done. Okay, all these processes are quite the same. Now coming to the fourth types of cultivation, that is elder-based cultivation. This elder-based cultivation is mostly practiced by the Chakisang, the Angami, and the Konyak tribes because their land is in their area, the elder trees are widely available. Okay, so here in this elder-based cultivation, elder is a tree. All right, so this elder tree, it is considered as a boon for the villagers because this tree has very strong roots that used to grip the soil and helps in preventing soil erosion. So the soil doesn't get loose and washed away by the rainwater because the roots of this elder tree has gripped tightly and has retained the moisture of the soil, right? And another good thing about this elder tree is that this elder tree provides firewoods for the villagers, where this tree is completely kept in the same position. However, this tree is not cut off, all right? Only the branches are cut off. So this system is called pollarding. So usually they wait for the tree to grow and it takes around 10 years. So once it is 10 years, they cut all the branches, that is called pollarding. And after the pollarding, they wait for another 4 to 6 years for the branches to sprout again. So in the next pollarding, what happens is about 50 to 150 branches sprouts again. So the same thing is done, and these branches are used as a firewood. So it really helps the people in the villages to get enough firewood for daily sustenance. Okay, so elder tree is a boon. It's quite beneficial for the people who are living near the areas where these elder trees are widely available. Okay, now another thing about this elder-based cultivation is that these elder trees, the leaves of these elder trees, once they fall on the ground during the autumn season, they get mixed with the soil and it becomes a manure. So this manure makes the soil very fertile and it is very good for the plantation of crops, right? So because of this elder trees, because of these elder leaves, the farmers, they used to have a good crop plantation, and also it gives them something good in return. Now what they do in this elder forest, they used to plant the crops and vegetables, and they do not follow the slash and burn. They do not cut any of the plants. They do not cut any they do nothing in this forest. They just leave it like that. So once these elder trees are fully grown, the leaves, as I said, makes the soil very fertile, and because of the leaves becomes a manure for the soil, so they don't have to apply any artificial form of manure to make the soil fertile. And these crops are grown and along with the elder tree. So once they are done with their plantation, once it's harvest time, they take it out, and then again in the next season they follow the same process. So this elder based cultivation is very much encouraged to all other areas as well, because this doesn't harm the forest, it doesn't cause deforestation, it doesn't cause degradation of the soil, because it's like conserving the forest, right? So this elder based cultivation is one of the cultivation that is encouraged in other villages as well. Okay, now let me go back again. As I mentioned, the agricultural crops not only include the rice or the maize or millets, but it also includes cucumber, cardamom, job tears, etc. And coming to the agriculture is not only about plantation, but it's also about other types like basket making, weaving, and it also includes candle making, okay? Because they're all using the natural sources, right? The raw materials from the farms and the raw materials from the garden, so they comes under agriculture. And we also have some few factories and industries, small scale industries in Nagaland, who are also actively involved in agriculture. And coming to the types of cultivation, we have 4 types. One is the Jhum cultivation, also known as the shifting cultivation, because we shift from one plot of land to the other plot of land, right? The next one is the wet rice terrace cultivation, which is mostly practiced in the hilly areas. And the third one is the wet rice cultivation, which is practiced in the plain areas because of the difference of the areas. However, the process for this wet rice terrace and the wet rice cultivation is quite the same. And the fourth one is the elder based cultivation, which is done along with the elder trees. Okay, so that's all for today in this class. In the next lesson, I will see you with another topic. Thank you.